The Monday morning stare. Monday morning assaulted John with the full force of fluorescent office lighting and the aroma of stale coffee. He clutched his worn leather messenger bag, its contents a jumble of nervously revised notes and a half-eaten granola bar. His tie felt too tight, his shoes too new, his entire existence too scrutinized. Mr. Henderson, a man whose handshake felt like squeezing a damp sponge, led him through the bullpen. A blur of faces swam before John, each offering a polite but fleeting smile. "And this is Sarah," Henderson announced, stopping at a desk overflowing with organized chaos. Sarah looked up, her eyes the color of warm honey, a smile playing on her lips. "Welcome to the circus, John," she said, her voice a soothing balm to his frayed nerves. "I'm usually the ringmaster." He mumbled a greeting, instantly captivated by the way sunlight caught in the strands of her blonde hair. He was assigned a desk near the window, a location he immediately regretted. It offered a perfect, unobstructed view of Sarah's workspace. For the next few hours, John feigned absorption in onboarding documents, his gaze constantly drifting towards Sarah. She answered phones with effortless grace, typed at lightning speed, and even managed to coax a smile from Mr. Henderson when his computer froze. Each time their eyes met, John quickly averted his, a blush creeping up his neck. He tried to convince himself he was merely observing her work ethic, admiring her efficiency, but his heart hammered a different tune. He noticed the way she chewed on the end of her pen when concentrating, the delicate silver chain around her wrist, the small stack of romance novels hidden beneath a pile of manila folders. He imagined striking up a conversation, asking about her favorite author, perhaps even offering to buy her a coffee. But the words remained trapped in his throat, strangled by a potent mix of admiration and fear. He needed to stop staring and come up with a better plan. The confrontation. The pile of invoices blurred in front of Sarah's eyes. She'd been at it for hours, trying to catch up after being out sick last week. A prickling sensation on the back of her neck made her glance up. John was at his desk, ostensibly working on something, but his gaze was fixed on her. Not subtly, either. It was the third time today she'd caught him staring. Enough was enough. She pushed back her chair, the squeak echoing in the otherwise quiet office. John jumped, his cheeks flushing a vibrant pink. "John," Sarah said, her voice calm but firm. "Why do you keep staring at me?" He fumbled with a pen, dropping it with a clatter. I'm sorry, Ms. Miller. I didn't mean to be rude." He looked everywhere but at her. The air thickened with awkwardness. He took a deep breath. "It's just. I hope you weren't married." The words burst out in a rush, like a dam had broken. Sarah blinked, surprised. This wasn't the reprimand she'd anticipated. A small, hesitant smile touched her lips. "Well, John," she said softly, "the good news is, I was married. The better news is, I'm recently divorced." Coffee break banter. The breakroom's aroma of stale coffee usually did nothing for John, but today, it felt almost welcoming. He fumbled with the ancient coffee machine, praying it wouldn't spew grounds everywhere like last time. "Having trouble there, John?" Sarah's voice made him jump. She leaned against the counter, a half-eaten apple in her hand, amusement dancing in her eyes. He flushed. "Just, battling this prehistoric beast." "How's your morning going?" "Surviving. Just finished that Henderson report." "Ugh." She shuddered dramatically. Needed a caffeine fix before tackling the Patel proposal. John managed to coax a weak stream of coffee into his mug. "Speaking of escaping reality, what's your go-to movie for a mental vacation?" Sarah considered this, biting into her apple. "Oh, that's tough. Probably, Casablanca. The dialogue's just so sharp." "Yes." John exclaimed, a little too enthusiastically. "Bogart is a legend. Have you seen The Maltese Falcon?" "Of course. Classic noir. You have good taste, John." She smiled, a genuine, warm smile that made his stomach flip. Though, I'm also partial to anything with Cary Grant. Their conversation drifted to hiking. Sarah described a recent trek up Mount Beacon, her eyes shining as she spoke of the panoramic views. John confessed his outdoor adventures were limited to dodging pigeons in the park. Suddenly, they both dissolved into laughter, remembering the time Mr. Henderson accidentally set his tie on fire during a company potluck. Remember the look on his face? Sarah choked out, wiping a tear from her eye. The bell chimed, signaling the end of the break. As they walked back to their desks, John felt a lightness he hadn't experienced since starting the internship. Maybe this place wouldn't be so bad after all. Maybe. The hiking invitation. John spent his lunch break hunched over his phone, scrolling through all trails. Easy to moderate trails near the office, he muttered, a nervous energy thrumming beneath his skin. He envisioned them walking side by side, the crisp autumn air swirling fallen leaves around their ankles, sunlight dappling through the trees. He was picturing a scene from a movie. Back at his desk, Sarah was meticulously alphabetizing files, her brow furrowed in concentration. John approached her desk, his palms sweating despite the air conditioning. "Hey, Sarah," he began, his voice cracking slightly. He cleared his throat. "I was wondering, the weather's supposed to be nice this weekend, and I know you mentioned you liked being outdoors. I was thinking about going for a hike, maybe at Raven's Peak. And I was wondering if you'd like to come." He rushed the last part, barely meeting her gaze. Sarah looked up, a surprised but pleased expression on her face. "Raven's Peak? I haven't been there in ages." "That sounds lovely, John. I'd like that very much." She smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached her eyes. John's heart leaped. "Great. Great. I'll text you the details later this week." He retreated to his cubicle, a goofy grin plastered across his face. He grabbed his phone and texted his friend, Mark. She said yes. "Hiking this weekend?" He received a string of celebratory emojis in return. John leaned back in his chair, the scent of printer ink and Sarah's perfume, something floral and light, filling his senses. This weekend couldn't come fast enough. Trail talk. The trail wound upwards, sunlight dappling through the canopy of leaves. Sarah pointed out a hawk circling overhead, its cry echoing in the crisp mountain air. John, slightly out of breath, fumbled with his water bottle. "Beautiful," he managed, more to her than the bird. He was enjoying the quiet rhythm of their steps, the comfortable silence punctuated by snippets of conversation. "So, 10 years at Miller and Sons?" John asked, genuinely curious. Sarah chuckled. "Longer than I've stayed anywhere. Pays the bills, keeps me busy." "What about you?" "Internships and..." He launched into a story about a disastrous summer working at a frozen yogurt shop, complete with exploding blenders and a boss who wore a permanent scowl. Sarah laughed, the sound light and melodic. As they rounded a bend, a hiker in neon gear blocked the path. He gave Sarah a lingering look. "Enjoying the view, ladies," he said, winking. Sarah's smile tightened. "We were," she replied coolly, stepping past him. John felt a surge of protectiveness, quickly dismissed as ridiculous. Back at the office on Monday, the air felt different, thick with unspoken words. A few too many glances were exchanged when John helped Sarah troubleshoot the temperamental printer. He caught snippets of conversation, hushed whispers near the coffee machine. The rumor mill was churning. Later, at the water cooler, Sarah filled her glass, avoiding eye contact. "Rough weekend?" John asked, trying to sound casual. Sarah sighed, the sound barely audible above the hum of the cooler. "You have no idea." Richard's return. The knock was sharp, insistent, jarring Sarah from her meticulously organized spreadsheet. She glanced at the peephole, her breath catching in her throat. Richard. It had been 5 years. 5 years of carefully constructed solitude, and now he was standing on her doorstep, looking remarkably the same disarming smile, the same glint in his hazel eyes. She opened the door a crack. "Richard? What are you doing here?" "Sarah," he said, his voice a low rumble that used to send shivers down her spine. "Can I come in? We need to talk." He didn't wait for an invitation, pushing the door open wider and stepping inside. Her usually pristine living room seemed to shrink under his presence. He took her hands, his touch sending a confusing mix of warmth and resentment through her. "I've made a terrible mistake, Sarah. The biggest mistake of my life. Leaving you." He launched into an apology, a torrent of remorse about his selfishness, his immaturity, his inability to appreciate what he had. He wanted a second chance. He'd changed, he swore. He was ready now, ready to be the man she deserved. Sarah pulled her hands away, her head spinning. "Richard, I don't know what to say." Later that evening, she found herself pacing in front of Emily's favorite armchair, phone pressed to her ear. "He just showed up, Em. Like nothing ever happened. And he wants to reconcile." Emily's sharp intake of breath was audible. "Are you serious? After everything? Sarah, you deserve so much better than that." I know, Sarah sighed, sinking onto the edge of her bed. "But, it stirred something up. A little flicker of something. God, I hate him for doing this." Distance and doubt. The lunchtime crowd at the deli spilled onto the sidewalk, a cacophony of chatter and clattering cutlery. John, navigating the throng with a stack of files, stopped dead. There, bathed in the golden afternoon sun filtering through the awning, were Sarah and Richard. Richard was leaning in, his smile dazzling, while Sarah laughed, a genuine, unguarded sound that twisted something inside John. He'd thought Richard was out of the picture. He hurried past, heart hammering, convinced they'd seen him. Back at the office, John found himself avoiding Sarah. He took the long route to the supply closet, volunteered to fetch coffee for the entire department, a task normally beneath him, and busied himself with filing, meticulously alphabetizing documents that didn't need alphabetizing. Finally, as the day waned, Sarah cornered him near the water cooler. "John, is everything all right? You seem distant." Her brow furrowed with concern, those green eyes searching his. He forced a smile, the muscles in his face protesting. Fine. Just swamped. Mr. Henderson wants those reports by tomorrow." A flimsy excuse, even to his own ears. Sarah didn't look convinced. "We haven't talked all day." "Not really. And you haven't stared at me all day either," John chuckled nervously, avoiding eye contact. "Just focused, that's all. Big deadline." He slipped past her, muttering something about needing to get back to work. He didn't see the flicker of hurt that crossed Sarah's face, the way her shoulders slumped slightly as she turned and walked back to her desk. The air around her seemed to crackle with disappointment. The office, usually a haven of quiet industry, now felt vast and cold. A public defense. The air in the conference room hung thick with tension. Mr. Harrison, his face florid, was dissecting the quarterly reports. "Sarah," he began, his voice laced with patronization, "these figures are disappointing. I expected more attention to detail, especially with your experience." Sarah's jaw tightened. She'd poured weeks into those reports, juggling deadlines and Harrison's last-minute requests. Before she could formulate a response, John, who'd been doodling abstract shapes in his notepad, blurted out, "Actually, sir, I think Sarah did an incredible job. She streamlined the entire process. I was watching her work, and the insights she brought were impressive. Without her, we'd be weeks behind schedule." A hush fell over the room. All eyes swiveled to John, a mixture of shock and disbelief etched on their faces. Harrison's face deepened in color. Sarah stared at John, a flicker of surprise, then something akin to gratitude, warming her gaze. John, fueled by adrenaline and a sudden, protective instinct, continued, "She's dedicated and incredibly efficient. These reports reflect her commitment, not a lack of it." He knew he was sticking his neck out, jeopardizing his already shaky position, but seeing the unwarranted criticism directed at Sarah ignited something within him. The silence stretched, punctuated only by the rhythmic ticking of the clock on the wall. Harrison, speechless for once, simply glared. The meeting adjourned abruptly, leaving a palpable electricity hanging in the air. Sarah caught John's eye as they filed out. A small, almost imperceptible smile played on her lips. "Thank you, John," she mouthed, her voice barely audible above the rustling of papers. A quiet dance. The music softened, a crooning melody that seemed to invite couples to the floor. Sarah found John near the buffet table, looking utterly lost amidst a tower of gingerbread cookies. She walked over, her heels clicking softly on the polished floor. "You've been avoiding me," she stated, bypassing pleasantries. "Is there a reason?" John's cheeks flushed a shade of red that rivaled the cranberry sauce. "No, I didn't want to make you uncomfortable. You know, with the age difference and everything." Sarah sighed. "John, you're overthinking again. I'm a grown woman. If I'm uncomfortable, I'll tell you." She paused, her gaze softening. "I'm also a bit scared. I haven't let myself feel like this in a long time." John looked up, surprised. "Scared? Of what?" "Of getting hurt. Of wanting something real and it not working out." She admitted, a vulnerability she rarely showed. He reached out, gently taking her hand. "Me too. I'm young, maybe a little naive, but I genuinely like you, Sarah. More than I expected." "Then let's be scared together," she suggested, a small smile playing on her lips. "No pressure, no expectations. Just, see where this goes." Slowly. He squeezed her hand. "I'd like that." Sarah led him to the dance floor. They moved together awkwardly at first, but soon found a rhythm. John's hand rested lightly on her waist, his touch sending a pleasant warmth through her. He looked at her, his eyes full of hope. She returned his gaze, a genuine smile lighting up her face. The challenges were there, looming in the background, but in that moment, surrounded by the soft glow of the holiday lights, they were simply John and Sarah, sharing a quiet dance.